All right, continuing with the HTML5 Canvas demos that I'm working on, we're going to look at how we draw rectangles. It's really kind of surprising how limited the JavaScript Canvas drawing primitives are. So we don't have primitives for polygons and things like that, which means you have to write the code for them. And eventually I'll show you code to do arbitrary polygons. Be honest, I haven't quite figured it out yet because you have to calculate the angles with trigonometry, which makes this a very primitive drawing library. So the only real figure we have other than arc is rectangle. It turns out we can draw circles with the arc, and then if you want to do ellipses, you can basically code them in a really intensive way, or you can kind of squash a circle with a transform to make an ellipse. So it turns out we have to do a fair amount of work to do regular polygons and other figures. So let's look at the simple one here, rectangles. We have three methods. Just rect here draws a rectangle but doesn't render it. So this won't even show unless you stroke to draw the outline or fill to fill it. Stroke rectangle will render the rectangle, but it'll just render the outline. Fill rectangle draws the rectangle with no outline and fills it with the fill color. If you want a rectangle that's filled and has a border color, it's important that you fill it first and then stroke it. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at my demo program. So again, I've just kind of plagiarized my own code here. This is one of the earlier ones that has the draw button. And I actually forgot to add the code in that clears the screen between draws, which is kind of all right here. That'll show you the different triangles. So we basically have some extra variables that I've declared. USTRICT requires that you declare them. And then I have start X and start Y, which is randomized. And I'm randomizing that so that I'm taking half of the screen width, and of course the height is the same since it's a square canvas, so I didn't bother to change that, plus 10 just so I don't get a value that's right on the edge where it's 0. And then notice I'm taking an eighth of the width for the width and the height of the rectangle, and again adding 10. And the reason I'm doing that is I want the rectangles to be in the upper part of the screen because I'm going to draw each one 3 times using the different primitives. I've added code to get another color, which is going to be for my fill. So I'll have a different fill color and a different stroke color. And notice you just use the fill style just like you do stroke style to set the fill color. So stroke style will be the outline of the triangle. Fill style will be what it's filled with. I don't think the line cap matters anything here. Here's the basic rectangle. So it draws the rectangle from start X and Y using a given width and height. Notice this does not render anything. It's just an object. It's not actually even on the canvas until you either stroke or fill it. Okay? So here we have the stroke. Now, if I add the fill in here, which I'll do in a moment after I run the program, the fill will actually overwrite the stroke. And so when you want to have both, you have to do it like I did down here. So anyhow, the other rectangle method is stroke rectangle, and that just draws the outline. And then fill rectangle draws the rectangle but fills it. So I've got 3 different rectangles here. Notice how I kind of cleverly set this up. The start X and the start Y is here. The next rectangle has the same width and the height, but I've offset it by 75, so it's going to be lower on the screen and to the right, and then another 75 for the third one. Okay, let's go ahead and take a look at this. I think I already have it loaded here in the browser. Yes. And so then we hit render. So here are the 3 triangles. So again, this is the first rectangle, sorry. This is the first rectangle, and it only appears because I have told it to stroke as a separate command. Here's the stroke rectangle, here's the fill, and then stroked rectangle. And so let's go ahead and modify this so that we fill this after we stroke it. And what we should see is that this inner color will overwrite the border here. So let me go back into the Dreamweaver code, and right there's where we're stroking that. So let's go ahead now and fill it. I don't know about you, but it sounds kind of obscene, you know, keep stroking, but well, whatever. So let's go ahead here. Probably shouldn't have said that, but all right. And I'm going to reset this so we don't get any confusion. I'll show you why in a second. Okay, so now you can see, and here we have, we basically stroked and then filled. I'm kind of surprised. What I thought was going to happen is that the fill would overwrite the stroke. It might be because of the size of the stroke. I'm not really sure. Here we have one that's just stroked with no fill. Here we have one that's filled and then stroked. Okay. And let me think a second. Actually, you can see where the difference is. So these should all be the same width. You see how the width is smaller here? That's because we filled it after we stroked it, and part of the stroke got overwritten by the fill. So that's definitely a case where the size of the stroke determined that. Okay, now since I didn't turn this off to clear the screen, I can just keep clicking it and you'll see many examples here. And again, I've got my coordinates set so this appears mostly in the upper half of the screen there. Okay, we could set this on a set interval and just let it run. It would fill this with rectangles. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful, and you know how to do the rectangle now. And I'm going to have to spend some time on the geometry of calculating the angles and the trig for that to figure out how to do a polygon. That might be one of those Google search things, so we'll see. All right, take care.